Hey guys, this is Ch3shire, and I'm watching out the window, and it's getting cold here, dark and wet. Yeah. So there's no reason why I shouldn't sit here in front of the screen and making this first tutorial for you. Yep, that's right, I'm making a tutorial. Finally. I got many requests for tutorials from you, and after my good friend Mogi recommended this to me, and the post on Facebook got more likes than the actual post about new music, I felt kind of forced to do this. And as I learned pretty much from YouTube, I think it's just right to put some of my knowledge and experience back into the pool of YouTube. The reason I'm saying this, I'm no audio engineer. I'm no professional music producer, I'm still a beginner, I'm still learning. So, whatever I'm saying, don't trust me. Do your own thing. But despite this, I will still try to make some quality tutorials for you. Not like those horrible pixel war tutorials. Hey, welcome to my tutorial! And you're waiting hours and hours for the guy to finish his writing and it's not teaching or fun at all. What I also won't do is to make tutorials how to sound like Skrillex or any particular artist because I want you to find your own sound. I want you to understand producing. And what's the point of getting a sound that already exists? Might be useful, but that's not what you want. You want your own style. To keep things organized, I divided the tutorials into 3 categories. The sound category, the system category, and the production category. The sound category will be basically about synthesizing and sound creation. Creation of your own sounds, not of Skrillex sounds or my sounds. The system section will be about Know Your DAW, Know FL Studio, to optimize your workflow. And last but not least, the production category will be basically about everything else. I will cover some of these topics by myself, but this whole thing isn't meant like that, because I'm not the one who's learning here. I need to know what you want to learn. So if there's something you want to know or anything you always want to learn, go ahead to the comments and tell me what I shall do next. And I'll do my very best to cover all your requests. Okay, so much for the introduction. But now we're going straight into work. I don't want to talk too long. This very first tutorial will be one of the sound category. And most of those I make will be about Sytrus because Sytrus is my favorite synthesizer. It comes with FL and it has nearly unlimited possibilities. It got quite famous with seamless OS growl basses, but it can do much more because it combines the 3 biggest ways of synthesizing. It's the additive synthesis, the subtractive synthesis, and the most important part of Sytrus, the FM synthesis. It took quite long for me to get this concept. That's why I start to go through the whole synthesizer with you, so you will be able to follow me in the upcoming tutorials. If you see this beauty the first time, the navigation in Sytrus works with those tabs above. Those keep the surface small. I don't know how big it would be without those tabs. Those first 6 tabs are the so-called operators. They're basically the same thing as oscillators and other synths. If you ever worked with 3x os, you know what that is, and I guess the reason why they're called operators is because they are highly customizable. So let's take a look at them. First of all, we've got this wave shaping area over here. We've got a monitor of the current waveform and a couple of sliders to shape your wave individually. And even this is more than you got in most other synthesizers. The next thing is this bar of tabs below. We've got a list of parameters in the upper line and a list of modulators in the lower line. It's quite obvious how it works. You just select your parameter and apply the modulator to it. And if you want, you can apply 2 or more modulators to the parameter. For example, a bow and an envelope curve, and we'll cover the rest of them later. But this is still the classic way of synthesizing. The real thing starts here, in this tiny tab below, the Ask tab. Everything that's going on here is called additive synthesis. The basic idea is that any waveform, no matter how it looks like, can be made out of a fundamental sine wave and its multiple frequencies, the harmonics. You can edit them just by drawing them in here. Yeah, just like this or this. It's that easy. You might think, hey, is saw wave out of sine waves? He's kidding us, guys, let's move on. No, I'm not kidding. I'll prove it. Let's select a saw wave over here, and we'll just convert it into harmonics. And you see, it's a whole saw wave just made out of sine waves. nothing but sine waves, and you can edit them here. Same thing works for a square wave. Select a square wave, again convert into harmonics, and it looks like that. So, you see, this will work for every waveform. To prove that, I prepared a little custom waveform here in Edison. It looks like that. And another very powerful tool of Sytrus is that it can analyze every waveform you drag into it. So let's take that, drag it into Sytrus, and Sytrus recreates this waveform just by adding sine wave over sine wave. You might already get an idea how powerful this synthesizer can be. But we didn't really start yet. Let's get to the next module, the FM matrix. It's the most powerful tool of Sytrus, and it's very easy to use once you know the system behind those blue knobs. But first, what is FM? FM is the shortcut for frequency modulation. And instead of explaining you what frequency modulation is, I'll just show you. So I got two operators here. Those are two sine waves. I'll let operator 2 modulate operator 1. Operator 2 has a very low pitch, so you can hear the modulation. Let me turn up the pitch of operator 2 a bit. And a bit more. And a bit more. And even more. As you hear, operator 2 is not a sine wave pitching up and down anymore, but it's a whole new sound. And that's FM. So the idea is that the slope of operator 2 changes the pitch of operator 1. If the slope of operator 2 goes up, the pitch of operator 1 will be above normal, and if the slope goes down, operator 2 will have a lower pitch. So if you use a triangle waveform for the modulator, you will get a jumping pitch. Okay, so much for FM. But how does this matrix work? As you see, the lines and the columns both contain operators 1 to 6. The lines represent the actual playing operator, while the columns represent the modulating operators. So if you want operator 2 to modulate operator 1, you want to select operator 1 from the lines and operator 2 from the columns, and choose the amount of modulation. The same works for every other combination. You can modulate operator 3 with operator 4, operator 5 with operator 1, and even operator 1 with itself. And that's called feedback, which can have some very cool effects on your sound. And the great thing is, you can build a modulation chain. For example, operator 3 modulates operator 2, operator 2 modulates operator 1. With this method, you can build very complicated sounds. So we know how the modulation part of the matrix works. But there's still a few additional columns and lines left. Let's take a look at these columns. The most important one is the out column. It's pretty self-explained, just turn up the volume of the operator we want to hear. The pan knobs should be self-explained too, they work the same way. And the knobs in this FX column define the wet amount of FX you want to mix onto the operator's out. Now what about those three lines are left? They represent the last big style of synthesizing, the subtractive synthesis, which means nothing else but filtering the sounds you created. Sytrus has 3 built-in filters. If you want the signal of an operator to be filtered, just remove the signal on the out channel and turn up the knob in the right column. I want operator 3 to be filtered by filter 2. But we don't hear anything. Yeah, that's because we didn't turn up the out signal of filter 2. That works exactly the same as before. You can adjust those filters in the tabs above. They work similar to the operators, but instead of shaping a wave, it's selecting a filter and set the parameters. And of course, you can modulate those parameters again. This is where you could create a classic dubstep wobble by using a low-pass filter and the LFO on the cutoff. Another interesting feature of those filters is the wave shaper. Every filter has this separated distortion module. What we've got here is a simple graph you can draw, while the x-axis represents the input and the y-axis the output. The default curve is some kind of soft clipping or so. And if you draw a straight line, the wave shaper won't have any effect on the audio signal. If you want, you can draw pretty extreme curves here and distort the hell out of your audio signal. So here's one last thing I want to tell you about the filters right now. We've got this little next button over here in filter 1 and 2. So what happens if you turn it up? The filter will send its output not only to the output, but to the filter below. And that's pretty useful when you need more than one filter on the output. Maybe if you don't want this wobbling sound as a bass, but as a scratchy lead. So you send it to the next filter and apply a high-pass filter on it. Okay then, there's only one tab left that I'd like to cover, and that is the FX tab. I won't describe those FX in details because this shall only be a quick walkthrough, and it's pretty useful if you already know how to use these FX. But fact is that you can customize a chorus here, as well as a reverb and the delay banks. You can use this to add some room to your sound or just to fatten it up a little. We'll come to that in another tutorial later, where I'll also cover this little send area here. Alright, I guess we're done. Those were the basic features of Sytrus. One last thing I'd like to mention is an additional modulator, the XY pad. You know how to modulate the parameters with envelope and LFOs, but you also can link them to the X or Y parameter of the pad you have on the main section. This is really great if you want a whole bunch of sounds in just one patch. You could link a filter cutoff to X and the resonance to Y. And zoom, you can control both of them just by changing the position of that point over here. Yeah, congrats. That's all I wanted to tell you about Sytrus so far, and we'll go much deeper into Sytrus next time. I'll show you how you can create your own patches, and we'll make some awesome sounds together. Until then, start playing around with this beauty and collect first experiences. If you want to see the full series, please subscribe here and you won't miss anything. And plus, every subscription gives me additional motivation to make more tutorials. So thank you all for watching. Leave a thumb up and a comment. This was Ch3shire, clear skies, and we'll see us in the next tutorial.